Welcome to the Know Yourself Revolution podcast. My name is Grace Gravestock, and I am with Catherine O'Connor today from Divine Temple. Catherine is a sacred architect and channel of infinite knowledge and divine love magic. She works with sensitives, creators, healers, leaders, and change makers who want to connect to their truth and amplify their mastery. She creates sacred, committed, nourishing environments that deactivate separation patterns and expand multidimensional, authentic self-expressions. She empowers efficient light-bodied connections, impact, and resources by integrating psychotherapeutic understanding with a refined connection to thought. She aligns and activates an experiential sense of the inner god and goddess with her postgraduate diploma in drama and child mental health, certification in quantum light, and training in Arcturian healing, aromatherapy, spontaneity, yoga, anthroposophy, and psychodrama. She loves the ocean, mountains, and forests, enjoys spending time with her 3 grown children. Please help me to welcome Catherine O'Connor. Thank you for being here today, Catherine.
Thank you for having me, Grace. It's really a delight to be here.
Awesome. On the Know Yourself Revolution Summit and podcast, we like to interview successful entrepreneurs who are leading by example and creating a life they love by following their passion and intentionally creating a life they love by doing what they're here to be and do. And so I always like to start these interviews with a little quick look at your chart. So if you're new to human design, we're going to look at Catherine's chart. So unique, so beautiful. So Catherine, so if you're new to human design, I'll tell you this: human design is an amazing self-assessment tool that helps you understand what your energetic blueprint looks like. A lot of people have seen themselves in the mirror. They've seen themselves on all kinds of settings, but never probably seen this picture of who they are. And so as we're looking at Catherine's energetic blueprint right now, wow, it's very unusual, Catherine. You are definitely special, and you're here to be what we call an orchestrator. Orchestrators make up about 21% of the population. They're guides. You're here to be a guide to the new paradigm, which is going to be obvious when you tell your story and talk about what you do, because I know that's exactly what you do. So one of the special things about you is that in your public role, meaning this is how other people see you, you are both an explorer and a problem solver. That 5-line energy as a problem solver means that you're a general in time of trouble. And so you're called out of your explorations to solve the problems and get those from the invitations that you get from others. So for you, because you're an orchestrator, you will, of course, want to wait for that invitation. And if it feels yummy to you, that's when you know it's correct for you. And of course, the added piece there for you, and we see this in your decision-making strategy, is to wait for others to come to you and then wait for clarity. So what that means is that Catherine makes decisions best. She goes through an emotional wave. And so if you're about 50% of the population has this type of decision-making strategy. And so it means that as you are faced with a decision to make, you're not here to be spontaneous in making that decision, because if you made a decision up here or here or here, it might be a very different decision because it's based on how you're feeling at the time. So for people who have this decision-making strategy, as Catherine does, you'll want to wait for that wave to crash. So if you were on the seashore and the wave crashed and petered out, and then you have clarity and you're going to make the best decision for yourself when you have that clarity. I'm wondering how that resonates with your experience in life so far, Catherine.
Yeah, it does. It does. I do take the time. I've learned over my life to allow myself to have, like, if I'm setting a deadline, I'll set it, I'll get the information in advance so I can sit with it and I can process it. I don't do well if I have to do something at the last minute, because the emotion, there's just too much feeling. There are too many feelings that come to the surface, and it's just really hard. Yeah, I do. I really do take time to process a decision. But it's relatively straightforward. Things come very clearly and easily. It's not challenging. It just takes space.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things that jumps out at me about your chart, Catherine, is that there's so much white space And so what that means, if you're new to looking at energetic blueprints or human design, is that Catherine is like a giant receiving dish for information. And so all of us have these 9 centers, which when they're colored in, they're broadcasting, and when they're open or white, they're receiving dishes for information, which is being broadcast from, usually what we notice is what's being broadcast from the other person that we're with. But there are other things that affect it, like the alignment of the stars and the moon and all of that. But what jumps out at me about your chart, Catherine, is that you're very similar to a reflector in that way, that's very open. And so what I find interesting about that particularly is that you can probably read minds, and you also have and that's these top 2 being open is usually an indication of that. You have the potential to be able to read minds. And mechanically, that's because they're both white, they're open, so there's receiving dishes. And so for another person who's broadcasting, like me, for instance, I'm broadcasting from all of these top 3 centers all the time. I can't help it. It's just my energetic configuration. And so yours is a receiving dish, so you can pick that up. And of course, that could feel like you're actually reading someone's mind. I'm wondering if you're familiar with this pattern within yourself.
I am. It's more that I probably term it in that, particularly when I work with individuals, that I know what's going on. I can see what's going on. Probably in my own personal life, like if I'm having a conversation like this, it's more that I'm aware. Yeah, it's more like an awareness as opposed to actually really reading someone's mind. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the way it shows up for every person is going to be a little bit different, but I just want to explain that the mechanics of that for people who think, how is that even possible? It's because we're all like Tesla said, we're like giant antennas walking around. And the extent to which we're either broadcasting or receiving is determined by our energetic blueprint. And so for you, you're receiving a lot of information. I noticed that you've got the configuration, the triangle on the left side that's white, that's the configuration of a medical intuit. So I'm wondering if you have that experience of being able to perceive what's going on in another person's physical situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I can. And again, all these are really heightened when I'm with clients, like when I'm actually like in that seat. I know that I can do it in an ordinary conversation with someone, but it's not that I don't. It's like an awareness. I'm not really. I think I've learned to manage it, if that makes sense. In a way, so I've learned like when to really allow myself to really know and have the information really available, and when just to go, okay, it's there. I know it's there. But yeah.
Because you've got so much openness, I imagine that your experience in life it could be really overwhelming, for instance, to be in a group, like in a large group, because you're picking up so much information from everyone that they're literally just broadcasting all this stuff at you. And I'm just wondering, it seems based on your configuration, I would think that you would both be really good at one-on-one conversations and fatigued by group situations. I'm wondering how that fits with your experience.
Yeah, these are such interesting questions because like I've been in like from reading my bio, I've done a lot of group work and I've run lots of groups and I've been in group a lot, like from more of a therapeutic viewpoint. And so I actually love groups. I just think groups are the most extraordinary thing, and maybe it's because I enjoy all that I'm receiving and I enjoy the dynamic. I enjoy that it's so dynamic and it's so much going on. I think I have maybe over the years I've learned to manage it. Certainly when I was young, certainly in my as growing up as a child and through my teenagers and through my 20s, I was very quiet, like absolutely silent. And in group situations. And I think that was because I was overwhelmed. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand that I was picking up on so much. So yeah, I just didn't know how to interact with that. And that might have been why I was led into things like drama and psychodrama, which is very group orientated, in order to experience and how to be with all that I was receiving. And then later in life, how to really use it so that it really serves everyone.
Absolutely. So, I want to say that the fact that you've come to develop wisdom around that and that you have learned how to not be overwhelmed by that, but to actually manage it well in a group and do work with clients in a group setting. That's ideal. That's fantastic. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because for a lot of people that have this configuration, and if this is new to you and you want to find out what yours looks like, you go to what'smychart.com. It's completely free, and it will give you also a one-page summary of your life purpose based on your energetic blueprint. So it'll have some of the information that I'm sharing with Catherine today. And I'm just mentioning it, Catherine, because people who have a lot of white space in their chart have I've done about 2,000 readings now, and they tell me that it's in many cases, I'll say it depends on the age and the consciousness level of the person, but in many cases they find it very overwhelming to have that configuration, because the life lesson of this configuration is to really ask, what is mine? And it's really about learning to discern between the energy that is coming in from the other versus what's actually truly you, in this case, you, Catherine. And you've got a strong will, that's this green triangle, and you've got a very emotionally rich way of looking at the world. You're here to have all the highs and lows and all the in-betweens of that emotionally rich experience. And I say that because I think what helped me the most about understanding my unique configuration is that I'm not broken. I'm perfect the way I am. I'm perfectly designed to be and do exactly what I'm here to be and do. And so are you. And so as I look at your chart and I know a little bit about your story, and I'm just setting the stage for you to tell your story here. And I want to point out a couple more things. So this explorer line, the 3 line in your public role, is really about going where other people are maybe afraid to go or have not gone before. And so I know that in the bio that I read to introduce you, there's a lot of new things for a lot of people. They would probably consider it very esoteric. But I want to point out that's exactly what you're here for. You're here to explore those things that are not as mainstream. And that 5 line, the problem solver, is an energy pattern of a visionary leader. And so you're here to be a visionary leader, to guide us as an orchestrator, to guide the energy of the majority, the energy of the generator types. We make up 70% of the population, and you're in a smaller category, 21%. So you're here to be a guide to new ways of living, working, and being. And as I read about you, I know you're you're definitely helping people to get to the new path, the new paradigm, to live more authentically. So I wanted to just share. So I'm going to pause and just say, how does that resonate with how you see yourself, the way I've described you based on your chart?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a great fan of human design. I think it's just for me, it's an amazing tool. So it's lovely to hear my chart read. And yeah, it is 100% accurate in terms of how I experience things.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So your grand purpose in traditional human design, it's called your incarnation cross. What it really is these 4 key codes. And there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of information that we could go into, but I want to just share the summary version again as a foundation for you sharing your story in a minute, Catherine. One of those that jumps out at me is this gate 57, which is all about intuition. So you're clearly here to be very intuitive. The quantum name for this particular pattern is cross of honesty, single cross of honesty. So you're literally here to explore, learn, and teach about new ideas. That's the 3 line, new ideas that have the power to initiate others into new possibilities and potentials, to use your intuitive understanding and insights to initiate others into exploring new ideas. There's that 3 line explorer again. To use your intuitive penetrating awareness, as you mentioned earlier, that awareness to bring people back into alignment with what is true and what is truth. And that reminds me of what I read in your bio too. So you're very aligned with that. To use your intuitive awareness to help people begin the process of constructing the manifestation of their dreams, which is actually exactly aligned with your work. To initiate others by reconnecting them to their higher purpose and their innate connection with source, as a spiritual teacher whose insights help people quickly dismantle illusions that keep them from fulfilling their true potential. How does that resonate with you as a summary of your life themes?
just my life themes, and I am smiling because it is almost what I've got on my website. Like it's almost exactly
Right.
yeah. So that's
That's
I'm smiling.
That's so amazing. And you wrote you wrote your website before you learned this, right? Before we haven't talked,
Yeah.
right? I just want you to say that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't. So you got
No,
to
we
check
haven't
that
yet.
out.
No, and I yeah.
Yeah, and so many of the speakers that have been on the podcast and the summit have said that too. So I want you to go ahead and go to Catherine's website now, kyr.life/Catherine, and just check it out. You'll see it's almost word for word. I was laughing as I was reading it just because it's so amazing how the people that I interview on these shows are so aligned with their purpose. And that's exactly why I wanted you to be here and why I'm glad that you're part of the show here today, Catherine. So thank you again for being here. The biggest benefit right now in your transmission, besides the energy that you're transmitting and the information, is that you're leading by example. You are living your purpose. You are doing work that you find satisfying. And that's very clear. And you're encouraging others people to follow their heart. So let's talk about following your heart and how you came to first of all maybe you can talk about the work that you actually do. It sounds a little bit esoteric, I think, for some of the people listening. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the work you do and then share with us how you got to that place.
Sure. So the work I do is essentially alignment, which in another kind of is healing. It's essentially bringing you into alignment with your true self, with your authentic self, and that can look like many things. It can be more physical healing. I do tend to work a lot in the emotional kind of realm, so like working with any kind of emotional experiences that are still lingering and that you haven't fully processed. Then also working with the mental field and kind of those thoughts that might be outdated and really not of service. And we're always at that level of the soul and at the level of the divine. So working with connecting you to the truth of who you are, which is body, feelings, mind. That is part of who you are. And then there's also this extraordinary spiritual side that is totally and utterly connected to you as a divine being, to you in wholeness. I really am a stance for working with all as well, that you are whole, you are complete, and really it's just revealed and letting you step into that in fullness. And out of that comes the manifestation. Like out of that comes the creation of your heart's desires. So that's alignment, and then the other piece is activation. So activating you fully.
I want to talk a little bit about alignment, Catherine, with you, since you mentioned that is some of the work that you do. I talk about that a lot in my podcast, getting aligned with your purpose and all that. And it's only recently that I've really, and I'll be honest here, that I've really come to a new understanding about what that means on an energetic level. And it's only recently that I've really gotten that much into meditations. I'll say I've played with them, tested the waters with meditation for a few years now, ever since, the big shift in my life about 6 years ago. But I think that there's a lot of people out there like me, and perhaps a lot of people listening right now, that when you say the word alignment, what does it really mean? It's just hard to wrap your mind around, I think, for a lot of people. Could you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned healing. Could you talk a little bit more about what it, and I'll share with you my experience with it, how I see it in meditation now. But if you could share a little more about alignment, I think that would be useful, because it's an important topic. We hear the word, but I don't think that many people necessarily have a real clear understanding of it.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So for me, the core of alignment is like aligning to our truth. And one of the ways that it is most efficient to align to our truth or to your truth is to come into this on an energetic level, an energetic alignment. So we have a midline that runs through from source consciousness straight through. In a physical way, it's a midline that runs through the body on the inside of the spine. It's like a central channel that runs through on the inside of the spine. It also is the chakras in the etheric line up. So the chakras can actually go out of alignment, so they can be misplaced. So you bring those into alignment. And then, so that's like a vertical axis. It's known as the vertical axis, which can also be known as the axis of light. Then there's a horizontal axis, and the horizontal axis comes from the heart. So it's also bringing in that heart energy. And this is often what the kind of people may be most challenged with, is opening their heart and opening up this way as well. So once you've opened alignment this way on an energetic level, and on an energetic level opened alignment this way, what then happens is you create this extraordinary sphere. So in biogeometry, they see it as a kind of toroidal field that is actually getting created, and it goes up and it goes down. So that's the essential. There's so much I could speak about in many ways into that energetic understanding of alignment. But at the root, that's the essential energetics of how a system might look when it's coming into greater alignment. And once you're in that greater state of energetic level, it's then more easy to tune into your own truth. And it's also much easier to recognize what's yours, what's not yours, what is yours that's old and that you no longer require. You don't, like, you might be sitting with thoughts about yourself that actually aren't really helpful for what it is that you want to experience in life. And so once your system comes into alignment, that becomes, you can see it more easily, and then you have a choice around just letting it go and moving through it. So that's, I could spend I could do a 2-day workshop on this. So
I love it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. That's really helpful. I've experienced, and I'll say this from the perspective of what a lot of people that might be listening right now who have less experience than you in this. I just got this aha. So exactly what you said. I've been doing these grounding meditations, and I found that for me, it's easier to stay focused when I do an audio meditation where it's guided. And so when I do the guided meditation, what these meditations that I've been doing lately, they do have me connect first ground. So I put my grounding cord down into the center of the earth and I feel more stable. And then I open up the channel and I imagine the connection with source. And I think about it like an antenna. And I used to work in radio, so that makes perfect sense to me that I'm opening up that like switching on the radio and tuning into that channel, that the channel to pure source, and I'm connecting. And then when I visualize myself being connected all the way up and all the way down, it makes so much more sense now, the idea of alignment, because from a human design perspective, I'm just going to show your chart again, just this idea that we have this energetic field. And if we think of ourselves as an antenna, it makes perfect sense that we would need that alignment to be there in order to guide us to where we're supposed to go. And so that middle, our heart, and I want to talk a little bit more about the heart. So the heart you mentioned is hard for people to maybe to open their hearts, and it might be this time, and it might be, what does that mean? So let's talk about that in a minute. But I just want to point out that as I've been doing these meditations, I have noticed that I feel more calm and more centered and more at peace. And when I visualize that, like that I have this energetic string connecting me to source all the way up from my spine and then all the way down into the ground, being grounded in that way, all of a sudden the words that I've heard for so long about how important it is to be grounded make so much more sense, and then connected to source or God or your higher power or your higher self, however somebody comes into this conversation, wherever they're coming from. I think it's very similar. It's connecting to what you're choosing to connect to, and having that visual for me has really helped me to understand alignment so much more. So thank you for your explanation. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the heart. We see in human design these two centers in the middle, and for you one is white and one is green. But the fact that we all have that, we have an energetic system, we have a configuration that allows us to get that grounding and to be connected and to have that alignment. But you mentioned that there's a challenge for a lot of people right now with the heart. And I understand that a little bit, but I'd love to know more. And I think for people listening, we would love to tap into your wisdom. What more can you tell us about, first of all, that challenge? Why is it a challenge? And then how can we overcome it?
Yeah. So I think it's a challenge because many of us have experienced like a demand, like almost like a demand or an overemphasis on the mind, on thinking, on understanding things through the mind. And I think that has come through the school system. It's come from many places. And where that originally comes from is, how do we put it? Through the kind of what we call the last few hundred years of human history, there has been so much challenge for us to face into in terms of survival, in terms of navigating war, in terms of navigating huge changes in how the world works. And so the emotional field, or our feelings, often need time to process. And when we can't process those feelings, we shut parts of ourselves down. And what, as a human race, we've tended to do is we've tended to come into the mind as a way to manage all that. And so that really then turns to, so one is its societal expectations, another is its experience that is overwhelming. And the reason it's then hard to open the heart is because we're conditioned to use the mind, and B, it's really hard when we have a whole lot of unprocessed experiences that are overwhelming at the time and that are now lodged in various places of our body or our emotional field. So how do we navigate that? It's really challenging. Yeah, it just is. And really, and I think that's why, it's a lot of why I was called to do what I do, because I know that it's possible to shift that stuff. Like, I know it's possible to release and to move through the experiences that were unprocessed and to have that opportunity to open the heart if you want to. Yeah, so I think I've answered a couple of questions there.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into telling us more about how you came to do this work that you do. Clearly, we can see in your configuration that you are here to be a receiver of wisdom and knowledge. All that white in your chart tells me that you're here to be wise. And so that also means another way to look at it is you're going to have a variety, you have and you will continue to have a variety of experiences through your life, through relationships that are going to give you so much variety in all these different areas, because each of these is a pattern. It's an energy pattern and it has meaning to it. But you're going to get those experiences and develop wisdom around them. So clearly you have a lot of wisdom around this journey that humanity is going through right now. And you do help people with healing some of those issues. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you got to this place to know that this was the work that you're here to be and do.
Yeah, I knew from a really early age this is what I was here to do. And I chose when I was very young to do it, all to follow my heart. I chose I remember the day I chose essentially to follow my own truth. And I was very supported. I was in a really good family system that supported that. There was a little bit, of course, get a good job that was definitely present in the family system, but there was a lot of do what you want to do, follow your heart. And my mother was a huge explorer, so I had a lot of role modeling around me that really helped me to make those choices. And I did follow. I'm just trying to answer your go to where. So I did follow. So I made the choice very early on, and then I remade it really again in my early 20s. So I left school. I really wanted medicine. And that's where probably I didn't follow my heart. I believed I wasn't in my language, and at that age wasn't bright enough. And I did half an engineering degree and went no. I did a commerce degree and again went no. And that's really, at that point, I had a really low place. So I was probably about 22. And I really did not know what to do. I knew I wasn't going to do any of the things that I thought I was going to do, or that I was just doing for the sake because that seemed like the right thing for some reason. And that's when I think this is the reason I like this particular story, and I've repeated this was the first time I've done this like 3 or 4 times in my life. But the reason I like the story is because I was young, so that didn't have any resources like financial resources or wisdom or anything in that respect. And I remember I was in the streets of London. I had no job. I'd just been asked to leave my flat that I had for 3 months. I basically had no accommodation. I had no money. And I just remember like walking the streets of London for a couple of days, just tears running down my eyes. And I guess I surrendered at some level. I found a flat, I found a couple of jobs, I started to earn some money, and I started going to theatre. I started going to all the fringe theatre that I could find in London, and found that I really loved it and I had a passion for it. And that was really when I went, oh, okay, I have a passion for this. I've never done drama. I'm super shy. It was, I don't care. I just love this. I want to do this. This is what I want to do for the rest. And so from there, I really worked at going to drama classes and doing the things. And I was still super shy. And I came back to New Zealand and I applied for a diploma in drama. And this is where I really love this story, is that I didn't have any skill base in drama at all. I had an interview. I did well in the interview. And then I was to have an audition, and I did what an audition was. I had no idea, really. I'd done one or two. And they rang me up and they said, oh, look, we've got 13 spots, and we've had 13 applicants, so we're taking everyone and we're not doing an audition. And I got in. I don't think I would have easily have got in if I had auditioned. And it was hard. Like there was a year-long full-time postgraduate diploma in drama. The first 6 months, it was challenging. Like I was frightened as anything, and I really bumbled along. And then after about 6 months, I started to get some keys of what this was about and how I could actually be good at this. And it really led me to what I do now. Yeah, and I really deepened into that. And so it has all the elements, I think, of what can happen when we hit that point where we realize the direction we're heading is not really good, not where we want to go. It's not serving us. And it can be very challenging when we first realize that. And then the universe will give us, like when we surrender to that and really own that truth and know that there's something else out there that's going to be more of service to us and we're going to really enjoy, that it will be led to it. We'll find it. And it really is listening to your heart and then just following the steps, doing the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. Yeah. And again, I've done that a number of times.
I love that. Yeah. I want to just point out so that everybody knows this, your heart, literally in human design, it's called a magnetic monopole. And so we have a GPS embedded in our heart system, and it literally tells us it guides us on where to go. And there's a longer conversation around how it happens for each person. There's different factors that we can talk about. But I just want to support what you're saying, Catherine, because we are meant to follow our heart. And literally, quite literally, we are electromagnetically guided by that heart to where we need to be so that we're at the right place at the right time. And you mentioned bumbling around. I just want to point out this bumbling public role, the explorer, the 3-line often feels like they're bumbling around, and you become an expert at what not to do. So you tried this, you tried that, you tried this, and it wasn't it. And then finally you found your path. But I want to point out that even that searching, even that some people might feel it as struggle. They didn't know right where to go and they had to try a few things, but that's actually part of your path. That 3-line explorer that you're here to be and do is exploring, and that's part of exploring. So my message is everything happens for us, not to us, and it leads us to where we need to go. And so for you, you've got that open G center, which means that you're going to be influenced by other people, and that's going to potentially influence you until you get to that place of wisdom, which sounds like you've got to, where you're listening to your heart and you're not projecting, you're not allowing other people to project their identity onto you, because that is what could happen, especially earlier on in your life with that configuration. But you've mastered it seems, and that you've come to this place where you know what it means to follow your heart, and you literally are leading by example and doing exactly what you're here to be and do. So thank you for standing in your power. Thank you for doing what you're here to be and do, because when you stand and do what you're here to be and do, that empowers other people to do what they're here to be and do. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you another question. You're welcome. I wanted to ask you one more question about the heart. You mentioned we're talking about follow your heart. Could you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned that we're basically what I might take away from what you said earlier is we're conditioned and programmed to use our thinking minds to make decisions. and we're guided by our thinking minds. But really what human design teaches us, and what other spiritual practices teach us very clearly, is to listen to our bodies. And so my intention in putting the chart up was just to show that we are electromagnetically configured, or some people would say created. However you believe it, we are what we are, and we are meant to be guided by our heart. But it's a process to learn to listen to our heart. So could you talk a little bit about what doesn't work with that, knowing that you're an expert in what doesn't work with your configuration? Maybe you can talk about for those people that are listening right now that have tried to follow their heart. Maybe they're frustrated by the hitting a brick wall that they came to when they tried to follow their heart. Maybe you can speak into that pain that some people listening have felt when they've tried to follow their heart. They want to, but it's not working, and they're really frustrated. What would you say to them?
Yeah, the first thing is yours is a journey. So wherever you're at in the journey, it's unique. The path, the way it unfolds, the way that you come to recognize your own truth, and the way that you come to follow your own manifest is unique. It's not going to look like anyone else's. So if it feels like it's taking what feels like a long time, then that may actually be really optimal for you. It may be what your system is requiring in order for it to really ground in a way that's going to really serve you. So one thing I'd say is it may be that you want to reframe the I'm hitting a brick wall to this is taking the time that it needs to take, because I'm unlocking things within myself, so that when this really manifests and really grounds, I'm going to be optimally positioned to take that opportunity and to step into it in fullness. For many individuals so create space inside yourself for that, and create space in your environment to allow that which is unfolding to unfold. And also, as that's happening, it may be that shadow aspects or unconscious aspects of yourself are asking to be recognized. And as those become visible to you, people often talk about as things that hold you back. They're really unconscious or shadow aspects that you may not yet be aware of. So when you create that internal space, or create that space around you, you have time to meditate. You have time to do the things that really nurture and nourish you. That enables your system to bring to light those shadow aspects of yourself that maybe be needing to shift in order for this to truly manifest. And then the other piece is, so I'm saying, like, be gentle with yourself. And then the other piece is that some individuals, the degree of time that it takes can be related to the degree of potency and power that you're bringing. So I often talk about we're often more frightened of our potency and our light than we are of our shadow.
Talk about that a bit more. I love, it reminds me of that Marianne Williamson quote, where our greatest fear isn't that we're inadequate, but we're powerful beyond measure. Talk about that, because I feel like there's a lot of people that need to hear that message right now. Yeah. So what do you mean when you say it?
So when I say it, very similar to Marianne's quote. So going a little bit deeper, the shadow aspect is it's all unconscious. Like, we can be unconscious to our light as we can be unconscious to our shadow, because unconscious means we're simply not aware of it. So we're like, our light, our potency, it's our beauty, it's our vibrancy, it's our health, it's our vitality, it's our love. Now, when we bring that onto the stage, when we really shine that and bring that onto the stage, that creates major shifts in consciousness within ourselves and around us and to the Earth Star. It attracts people to us naturally. Now, why we can be so frightened of that is because if we go, how do we put it? If you're spiritually inclined, if we go back to Atlantis, there was the fall of Atlantis, frightened that our power is going to create some sort of explosion. We're going to hurt people with our power. It's just going to be too bright, too much. Then the other aspect of that is we can go, oh my God, we're going to, particularly say if you're projector like myself, that we're going to get overwhelmed. We're going to have so many people in our field that we're just not going to be able to manage it. So there are a lot of reasons why we can be frightened of our potency. But yeah, again, it's a 2-day workshop. But yeah, if there's anything in there that you feel like wants to be expanded on, just please point me in that direction.
I thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's an important message right now for all of us to see, to not be afraid of the power that that's starting to be unlocked within us. I think we're at a time in Earth's history when this is starting to happen. And it reminds me, I saw this show on Netflix. I don't watch TV ever, but I did watch this one show a few years ago, and it was about these regular humans that had these superpowers. And as they started to practice using their superpowers, it was a messy business. And it feels that there are people that are watching right now that are going through something like that. They're starting to, some people have called it your intuition is getting switched on or something like that. And so all of a sudden, recognizing these synchronicities and the fact that I thought about this person and then they called me and whatever, these little things, and we discount them. We don't trust our intuitions. So many of us, because we've been told not to. We've been told that only if it matches what our thinking mind tells us. But I feel that there's a real strong connection between this fear that we have of our power and owning our power, and then recognizing that we have these intuitive gifts. And so again, I just love human design because it helps us to see exactly what types of gifts we have. And the fact of the matter is we have all of them. We all have all of them, but certain ones we're here to master. And so that means we're going to have them all the time. And it's part of our journey to master them, to get really good at using them. But in order to get good at using them, you have to acknowledge that you have them. And in order to do that, you have to get past this fear of your own power and strength, and in a fear of shining, really. Yeah. So that leads, So is there anything more you'd want to say about that?
Yeah, I think that's absolute key. We do need to realize our fear of shining and our fear of being authentically who we are, and being visible with that, like letting ourselves know that we are powerful beyond measure, that we are potent, that we have within us everything that we require, and that we are creative beings, We create our life, and we can continue to do so. And that for me is the absolute key to living a really nourishing life.
Absolutely. First, acknowledging and making a choice. On my new book that's coming out really soon, How to Make Change Fun and Easy, one of the things that I say in there is that we have to make a choice. Choose. And if you're going through a change right now, here's one of my favorite exercises. Just repeat after me. I choose to make this change fun and easy. And so that's just a very simple but powerful expression of your strength and your power, and using your words to create something different in your life. And so that's one of the ways that I just want to compliment what you're saying, Catherine, because I think that when we part of owning our power is using our voice. And so when we use our voice and we are not afraid to speak our truth, as you do, even though I'm sure you've faced criticism for having such unconventional views about the power that we have, because it's not mainstream yet to realize how powerful we all are. I thank you for your courage. I thank you for showing the way and leading by example in sharing your light. So for people who want to work with you, Catherine, what does that look like? I know we've got this free gift. You've got a meditation. It's on the screen. If you're interested in the complimentary Cosmic Truth transmission, please check that out. But maybe you can talk for a minute, Catherine, about what does it mean to work with you? How do people work with you, and what does it look like when they work with you?
Okay. So what it means to work with me is to engage in an inner transformation that will reflect in your outer world. And we do work deeply and efficiently and take leaps in consciousness. And it also means having someone who is alongside you, really, to guide you, and to have that relationship where you can open your heart with ease and find that real truth within. The first, a real place to begin is I do a one-off kind of discovery call, which is a 60-minute call, and we would work together to recalibrate your system and recalibrate you to one area, internal, one external shift that you might want to be making. So like if it's in an area of your relationships or career, like what's holding you back and how we can shift that and work with that. And I channel. So I channel Thoth primarily. I work with lots and lots of beings of light and light. So I work with Archangel Michael, Metatron, Melchizedek, Thoth, Isis. So whoever is most optimal will step forward and really be working with us. Then the next step is, and you can jump straight into the next step, is I have a series of programs. So I have a 1 month program coming up, which is to release exactly what we're talking about, the fear of shining your light by releasing fears of visibility. And then I have some other programs as well. So, yeah. So you can work one-on-one with me for a period of time. And we can talk more about that if you're
if you feel called to work with Catherine, being an orchestrator type, Catherine, I know that your strategy is to put yourself out there and let people who resonate with you invite you to be their guide. And so that's exactly how it works with your particular energetic configuration. I thank you for having a website and for offering these these meditations that you offer, because that is a perfect example. And I say this because a lot of people who I work with, when they get a reading, for instance, or they learn about they get their life purpose career roadmap to find out what they're uniquely configured to be and do, when they find out that you're the type of person that you are, an orchestrator, they really get frustrated, because to have to wait for the invitation feels very sorrowful for some of my clients. And so and they always ask me, what does it look like? What is it supposed to look like for me to put myself out there? And so I think that you're doing a good job of, you have a website, you have yourself out there, you're getting yourself on podcasts. And so people can really feel your being, your frequency, they can get a sample of the kind of wisdom that they can get from working with you. And that's a perfect example of you living your design and being and doing exactly what you're here to be and do. And it doesn't have to be working harder. It needs to be working smarter. And so one of your special gifts as an orchestrator is to guide the energy of the other. So the fact that you work one-on-one with another being and help them to make that transformation, you're really literally guiding their energy, which is exactly what you're here to be and do. So I love that your work is so much in alignment with your design. I'm really grateful to be able to feature you here, because I think that's so important, that everybody has role models right now for what does it look like to do what you're here to be and do. We do have another summit coming up, so get on the list there if you're interested in meeting other people like Catherine, who are leading by example and truly living their design, just as you are, Catherine. I love it. Thank you so much for being and doing exactly what you're here to be and do. And by doing so, you're sharing your light with others. You're putting yourself out there. And for the people who are meant to work with you, they will feel that call even now. Depending on your own, if you're listening, if it might be in your gut, it might be you might have a sense in your intuition, it might be in your emotions, you might be triggered emotionally and you need to sleep on it. However it is for you, you will know. And when you listen to your inner guidance system and you make that decision based on what's correct for you, then there's no pushing, there's no selling, there's no struggle. Life can truly be fun and easy. And so this is a perfect example of a change. My book is Quantum Change Management, How to Make Change Fun and Easy. So I'm thinking about that because it just came out. And it's all about how to make change fun and easy. And that is fun and easy. It can be fun and easy when it's in alignment. And that's part of my message. And that's certainly part of your message. So I love that we can collaborate here, and you can share your wisdom and share your truth and share your frequency and share the beauty of this message, which is following your heart, and how satisfying that can be for everyone. It's fulfilling. That's where you get the fulfillment, is when you follow your heart and you do what you're here to do. So thank you. Is there anything that you would want to leave our listeners with today, Catherine? If they're on the fence or they're struggling with following their heart?
Okay, so I'm actually going to leave you. I would like to leave you with just a short kind of experience of a channel. So this is Thoth. There's a lot of energy coming through for each of you. And it will be coming through your central channel, so it'll be coming through the crown chakra. And this is the energy of love. The deeper, the most profound shift that humanity is in is to come into that vibration of love. And the first place is to love, to bring that love into yourself, to nourish yourself, to do the things that feed you, and to follow your heart, and to know that you're all on the right path. Each and every one of you is aligning to your truth. Ate ne tita ake ne tia. Blessings.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And thank you, Toth. Together, we can positively impact 5 billion people by 2025 through the Know Yourself Revolution. Imagine what it would look like if everyone knew who they were, loved themselves, and trusted their inner guidance system. That's the world that I'm creating and that we're creating together through frequency, through alignment and collaboration. Thank you for being here, Catherine, and thank you for watching today. Learn more at knowyourselfrevolution.com, and I look forward to seeing you next time.